Good afternoon, Mrs. Smith. How are you doing today?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. So I'm here to give you a bed bath. Would right now be a good time?
Yes.
Okay, let me go ahead and get us some privacy, ma'am. Okay, I'm just going to make sure that the bed is at the lowest position and that the brakes are on. Okay, Mrs. Smith, I do have to remove your gown, so I'm going to lower the head of the bed, okay? Okay, ma'am. So now I'm going to need your help. I'm going to go ahead and remove your gown, but I need to make sure that we don't expose you, okay? I'm going to go ahead and untie your gown. Okay. All right, Mrs. Smith, let's get that arm out for me. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and feed the gown to the other side, ma'am. That way it just makes it easier to remove. Okay, and I'm going to hold this here so we don't expose your chest. Let's go ahead and make sure we roll the dirty side in and away from our uniform. Okay, Mrs. Smith, I'm going to go ahead and grab you some water so we can begin. Temperature is good. All right, Mrs. Smith, I have some water here for you. Can you please test it to make sure it's okay?
Oh, it's perfect.
Okay, great. Well, then I'm ready to get started.
Rolling.
Okay, Mrs. Smith, we're going to go ahead and get started now. Okay, ma'am, we're going to go ahead and get started with your face, okay? We're not going to use soap for the face, so we're going to start with the furthest side first. We're going to clean from the inner aspect to the outer aspect, starting with the eyes. I'm going to change to a clean side and clean the eye from the inner to the outer aspect. We're going to go ahead and turn our washcloth to a clean side and make sure when we clean the face that we include the nose as well, wiping downward. Let's flip our washcloth one more time and we're going to go ahead and include the nose going down. And lastly, let's go ahead and get that forehead. Keep in mind we do not use soap for the face, so we just went ahead and used water. Now we're going to dry her face. Beginning with the eyes from the inner aspect to the outer aspect. Clean side of the washcloth from the inner aspect to the outer aspect. We're going to go ahead and flip that washcloth and let's get half of her face, including the nose, going down. Other half of the face. And lastly, we're going to go ahead and do the forehead. Okay, Mrs. Smith, we're done with your face. I'm going to go ahead and expose one of your arms so we can get started. We're going to go ahead and grab this bath towel and place it under the arm. When you lift up the arm, make sure you're holding at the joint. Okay, when we wash the arm, we want to do it in long strokes so that we don't cause shearing to the skin. We're going to include the arm, hand, fingers, fingernails, and axilla. Let's go ahead and begin. Okay, ma'am, we're going to go ahead and get your arm all nice and clean here, including the top of your hand. We're going to flip the washcloth and we're going to go down the arm. And you can go ahead and include the hand in there. Okay, with the clean side of the washcloth, let's go ahead and get the fingers. And we also want to focus on the fingernails. Please do each individual fingernail. And lastly, we want to go ahead and get a clean side of the washcloth and do the axilla. Wipe going downward away from the face. And that was the washing portion. Now we're going to go ahead and rinse. Rinse in the same direction with one long stroke. Let's go ahead and flip the washcloth. Go ahead and go all the way down to her hand. Okay, let's go ahead and get those fingers rinsed off. And let's work on getting the individual fingernails. Okay, lastly, let's get a clean side of the washcloth and do the axilla, cleaning downward away from the face. And lastly, we're going to go ahead and dry. Okay, ma'am, we're going to make sure your arm is all dry so you can feel better. Okay, we're going to dry in between those fingers. Make sure it's not moist in there. And lastly, we're going to make sure the fingernails are nice and dry. Let's go ahead and get a dry side of the washcloth and dry the axilla. Okay, Mrs. Smith, we're going to go ahead and remove this wet towel from you. Okay, are you ready to get dressed? Okay, this is a nice little trick to use. Go ahead and place the gown on top of the sheet to avoid exposing the chest. Okay, Mrs. Smith, let's get your arm in here. And you want to come around the other side, never work over a patient or a resident. Okay, Mrs. Smith, let's go ahead and get your other arm so we can put it in your gown. There you go. I want to make sure you're not cold here. Okay, Mrs. Smith, please raise your head up a little bit so I can tie. Okay, is that okay? All right, so now what we're going to do is we're going to put our hand underneath and pull the sheet out. This will eliminate exposure of her chest. See, we were not able to see anything there. Okay, Mrs. Smith, I'll be right back. I'm going to go ahead and dump that water out. Step 1, step 2, step 3. I am now washing my hands. Okay, Mrs. Smith, do you feel better now you had a nice bath?
Yes.
Okay, great. Let me just go ahead and make sure that the bed is still at the lowest position. I want to make sure your brakes are on. Would you like to sit up a little bit, ma'am?
Yes, please.
Okay. Okay, Mrs. Smith, I'm going to go ahead and hand you your call light. Please call me if you need anything, okay? All right, have a great day.
You too.
Thank you. I'm going to go ahead and remove privacy. Washing my hands. Skill is complete.